open the comment clock.
Good evening. I want to call to order this meeting of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners and welcome you all tonight, the few that are in here with us and the ones who are watching or listening. We're going to be led on with the Pledge of Allegiance tonight by Police Chief Bill Carter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. Our invocation tonight from the Wendell Council of Churches, we're going to hear from Pastor Chris Hilliard of the Wendell Baptist Church. Are you with us, Pastor Hilliard?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to lead us in prayer, and I appreciate all that y'all do. The only announcement I'll share is if you have access to Facebook, one of our members who works in the Department of Health, she's the Deputy Director of Childhood Education and Early Development. She did a program on the vaccines that talks about the science behind it and the distribution of the vaccines. It answers a lot of the questions people have. And so it is something that you can check out, and it might be of a great resource and benefit, and you can spread the word to others as well.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for the day. Thank you for life. Thank you for providing for our needs. And thank you for our leaders. I pray that you'll give them wisdom and guidance. They seek to do what's best for our community. I pray, Lord, that you'll give them continued creativity and passion for the work that they do. That you'll also give them the resources that you'll provide, that the programs and the things they feel led to pursue, things are provided for them. We pray for safety for our community, for healing, especially in relation to this virus. We pray, Lord, for the vaccines to not only be effective, but to be available for each and every one. I pray for the rollout to continue to go smoother, and I pray that when we look back a year from now, we'll just thank you for carrying us through this very interesting and difficult season. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you again. Are there any adjustments to the agenda tonight? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda. Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski?
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Let's see. Our public comment period tonight has been provided in advance of the meeting. The public had the opportunity to submit their written comments to the town clerk, or were able to submit a request to participate via calling in the conference by emailing their name, address, and phone number to the clerk by Friday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. At this time, the clerk would unmute anyone who has requested to speak in public comment. No one signed up tonight, but I went ahead and read it because I'm trying to remind everyone that you still have this opportunity to give public comment at our meetings if you sign up. We'd love to hear what your concerns or questions are. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All right, Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski?
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Let's see. Move into our recognitions, reports, and presentations. Let me find my correct page. We're going to hear first from item 4A. It's going to be the presentation of the updated capital expenditure plan for projects funded by the issuance of debt, and we're going to hear from Town Manager Mark Collins. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Good to see everybody. Let me go ahead and share the screen. Thank you, and if the board will recall, the board approved a reimbursement resolution in April 2020, identifying capital projects to be reimbursed with the issuance of a debt that was approved and appropriated for fiscal year 2021. The budget, as adopted, identifies the balanced revenues and expenses to accomplish capital project goals. Given updates in grants not being received and capital needs and getting closer to actual project costs, and looking at what to fund with a funding strategy, Finance has revised that and updated that list, and going to present a little bit of that tonight. The first is looking at what was in the adopted plan versus a modified proposed plan at this point. The adopted plan identifies 6 projects, several of which remain consistent. A couple fall out and a couple get added. Wendell pedestrian project is not in the proposed borrowing, and would be the general fund appropriation. The multi-purpose trail project, we received informal word from the county that since it was a design build and not just a build, that it wouldn't get funded in this go-around. Neighborhood improvement program, should actually be in both. That's a typo on my part, I apologize. Is funded in the proposed and the adopted. The park access paving road is in both as well, and the town hall project is in both as well. The park land acquisition falls out. That was an open space. The property owner was not ready to sell the property at this time, so that project fell off this fiscal year. Projects added into the proposed include the police station land acquisition and public works yard land acquisition that have been reported to the board. And again, there would also be added the neighborhood improvement program, and I think that's how you would come up with the correct number there. You'll notice probably the most substantive change is in the town hall project cost, and that's based on our current estimate to build. This would be our construction document number. This is actually a little bit larger than what the consultant sent to us. We're adding in contingency. The biggest cost difference between the project up here and the project down there deals with approximately 2,400 square feet that are in the original design, like that was put out to the architect and in the original design versus what was designed to meet the functional need of the town. We can get the project back by cutting 2,400 feet out, but that would be cutting the shell space that would allow for just kind of a tenant build out in the future versus building a new addition. When Finance and I evaluated that, the cost of mobilizing design and construction to do an addition for that amount of square footage 5-10 years from now, before the debt's even been expired on this, would cost the town a lot more. So it's the staff recommendation at this point to leave the 2,400 in the design and include that shell space so that we don't have to come back and do the addition in a shorter period of time. They have value engineered to the extent they can on without giving up on design and exterior look, the interior, and the only way to get, a couple things that they hadn't that you don't think about in the initial design is like width of hallways, the exact size to code of mechanical rooms that are based on the square footage of the building. The fact that we needed to go 2 stories with the elevator, so that square footage, the second stairway, there are things that the code drives that add additional square footage to the design as well, that you can't back out of. So short of getting rid of offices that are in our 10-year staffing analysis as needed, or getting rid of the shell space that allows for the growth for that second 10 years, there's no way to get it back down without giving up the integrity of the design. Any questions on that? Let me talk a little bit about considerations of the borrowing evaluated by staff at this time. Number one is we had a staff with the local government call with the local government commission staff to talk through their process and timing, to understand what rates they were seeing by other local governments around the state, which was a useful and helpful meeting, of course. Length of term for a bank borrowing typically runs 10, 15, or 20 year. Right now, staff is looking at the 20, maybe 15. Given that it's land and facilities that last much longer than that, predominantly with the borrowing, the longer term bank borrowing is useful. Rates right now, local government commission said they're seeing between 2 and 2.5. Steph and I also evaluated a 3% rate as well, just in case. The initial estimate that's in our budget right now is a 4%. So the rates are nearly half, a little less than half of what we budgeted originally. We were looking at what items to fund with debt versus general fund reserve. So we ran a couple models of, actually my mistake, taking out the neighborhood improvement and funding that with general fund reserve. And what we found was it would draw down the reserve at too fast a rate versus borrowing at the much lower rates today for the longer term projects. So we felt more comfortable because we had more short-term capital problems to resolve prior to the growth that we're experiencing, to leave that in reserve so we have the most ability to solve those problems. Butch and Garrett had a genius idea on the timing of borrowing. I'll go over the schedule on the next slide, but it's looking like the borrowing would take effect just in the beginning of next fiscal year in July, and you can defer payment till the following fiscal year. So there's actually no capital or interest payment in FY22 nor this year, and so that gives another year of growth and has that capital payment that we anticipated in the budget next year available to solve other capital issues that are coming. Deferring, talked about that a little bit. Retiring debt versus capital. So if you have that deferred payment, we evaluated, do we pay off the loan that was taken out several years ago to do the paving project, to pay down debt, versus using funds for capital needs or just maintaining fund balance. And for Wendell, our debt load is very low. It's relatively no debt compared to a lot of jurisdictions. Our problem, or challenge, is to capitalize capital needs short term. So the more you can extend out with the borrowing at this point for good projects, the more capital that is available to solve issues sooner. And so retiring debt doesn't generate enough annual revenue to offset the $1 million+ of retiring the debt. It's better to have that $1 million for your capital needs shorter term and to maintain your fund balance. Despite the larger number in the total of $1.5 million, the annualized debt payment over the term of the loan is still comparative to what the original 8.5 was because of the lower interest rate. So you're actually able to borrow a little bit more at the lower rate and still have the approximate amount that you were going to pay out before. I would also point out in the CIP, I did a flat payment. Each year had the same amount. Typically, you can negotiate for that flat payment, but typically in a bank loan of a smaller amount like this, they have larger payments up front and they reduce over time, but it would reflect an average. So the first few payments will be a little bit higher and the last payments in the term would be lower. So where we are, February, March, we need to work with the town attorney to update our reimbursement resolution to reflect the changes reported out, to make sure that we're still eligible to reimburse ourselves for things that we've expended since last February when this is adopted, but pick up the new projects like the property acquisition into a new reimbursement resolution. By May, if the town hall project remains on schedule, we should have the construction bid amounts from the bid process for the new town hall. That's really what LGC needs for their approval, since that's a main part of the borrowing. If we get it by end of April, first day of May, we'll be submitting in that first week to the LGC for review, and then the LGC meeting is the next month in the first week, so that would be the first week of June, and then we would schedule 30 days after that for the close for the bank borrowing. Also tucked into that May-June time period is the solicitation for the bank offers as well for the loan, to see who's interested at what rates. And with that, we close and then be seeking that deferred first payment until the following year in July, August, preferably August. And if you have, I know that's a lot pretty quick. I do have the different borrowing sheets and costs if you have any questions about any of the capital projects or borrowing or timing.
I do have a quick question, Commissioner Deloach here.
Yes, sir.
When you're discussing your payment estimation, we're basing that on a 4% appetite, basically?
Our original estimates were on 4%. Based on what the local government commission said they're seeing in their current applications, we anticipate somewhere between 2 and 2.7-ish at this point. We do have very, very good credit, so that lower rate is what they're seeing right now for municipal borrowings for bank loans in this amount.
Okay, so we just got a little more buying power if we're payment shopping. And I'm sorry, I've got a little delay, but
Correct.
okay.
Are there any other questions for the manager?
One comment, if we could get the copy of that schedule, like either email or,
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm glad to provide it. Yeah, I'll do my normal caveat that it's subject to change, it's dependent on final, but yeah, it's the same thing you get off a commercial loan calculator, basically.
Anything else from the board? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 4B is a presentation on upcoming downtown improvements. We're going to hear from the Assistant to the Manager, Stephanie Smith.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
just gonna share the screen. Okay. When I was here last, it was our October 26th board meeting when the board approved a list of downtown initiatives. Since that meeting, staff has been working to execute plans for the initiatives that we discussed. So tonight, I'm going to be bringing you an update specifically on parking, bike racks, and solid waste service downtown. So first up is parking. We have evaluated our current parking downtown, and staff worked to establish a task list to make easy improvements that could be accomplished this fiscal year. These are things like adding or removing signage, restriping existing parking spots, adding striping to areas where none exist so new spots can be established, as well as correcting out of compliance parking areas. With this work, we expect to add about 10 new parking spaces to the downtown area. In addition to that, we'll be striping the women's club lot as well as adding a concrete berm to identify parking locations at the park and ride lot, as well as adding signage to both locations. So between those two locations, even though they're currently available for parking, they'll be more highlighted, which is about 50 spots between both places. So the cost for the work specific to these parking updates is about $5,700 and can be covered by the current budget. This is a list of some of the items that we're planning on tackling before the end of this fiscal year. So adding public parking signs on Main Street and 4th, pointing both left and right to the on-street parking opportunities on 4th Street, as well as at the park and ride lot. And also on 3rd Street to direct parking into that Tobacco Alley area next to Town Square. We'll also be adding striping, which will establish parking spots on 4th Street between Main and Cypress, North Main between 4th and 5th, and 3rd Street past Pine Street. That location is near the police department. As I mentioned, we'll be striping the women's club lot and also adding concrete berms to the park and ride lot to make parking a little easier to navigate in that area. We'll be restriping West Campen Street. Work will coordinate with the new dumpster installation, which I'll talk about in a second. We're also going to be removing incorrectly placed signs and parking spots at the intersection of Main Street and 4th Street. We've had complaints about visibility issues at that location, so we'll be relocating some of the parking there, as well as 3rd Street and Main Street. There's a fire hydrant installed that is actually in front of a handicap parking spot. So we'll be relocating that handicap parking spot location and then striping and blocking out that hydrant location. As I mentioned, work will fit into the public works schedule between now and the end of the fiscal year. Of course, will depend on workload and weather, so you're not necessarily going to see all this work happen all at one time, but you'll see some little by little as staff availability and weather allows. Once the work is done, we're also, and even now before the work is completed, we're going to be working to evaluate any applicable ordinances that are outdated or will become outdated with this work, and you'll see us bring that back so that our code can be in compliance with our parking opportunities downtown. This is not all we're planning on doing. This is just what we can do right now quickly with this fiscal year. So you'll see us bring back larger, more comprehensive projects specific to our downtown parking initiative in future budget years. Any questions on parking before we move to bike racks? Okay. Next up, bike racks. We have prepared a recommendation to add bike racks to downtown. The locations we selected are Main and 3rd Street. that's across the street from where we currently have a bike rack location, and I have a map of this that I'll show you in just a second, at the town square and also at the park and ride lot. These locations have been supported by the Appearance Commission and will provide additional space for users to ride their bikes downtown and have a place to safely store them. This is also an opportunity to work with the Appearance Commission to use bike racks to implement their turning mundane objects into art projects, so more to come on that. The total cost for this work is about $1,500 and again be covered by the current year fiscal year budget. This is the map of our bike rack locations. You can see in blue are our existing bike racks, and then the yellow would be the proposed. So just adding more parking opportunities for bikes downtown, encouraging people to use other modes of transportation as they navigate the downtown area. Any questions on that before we go to solid waste? All right, last but not least, solid waste removal update. We notified you a couple weeks ago, the town has received a $10,000 grant through the Wake County Waste Reduction Grant Program. These funds are going to be used to add recycle cans to the trash receptacle areas for the public in the downtown area, as well as installing new dumpster pads at West Campen Street and the Women's Club lot, and this will be for businesses to use. Both of those new locations will have trash, recycling, and cardboard dumpsters, so 3 dumpsters at each place to give plenty of opportunity to remove that type of waste. Once these new dumpster locations are installed, we'll be working with businesses downtown to bring any existing dumpsters into compliance to match our code on public property, any screening requirements, things like that. The total cost for this project is estimated to be about $30,000, $10,000 of which of course will be covered by that grant that I mentioned. The remaining funds will be covered by the current fiscal year budget. Here's a picture of what the recycle bins will look like. And of course, this picture may look familiar. This is our East Campen Street dumpster enclosure. We're going to be modeling the 2 new dumpster locations after the way this looks to have consistency around our downtown area. And a reminder of where those locations are that we're talking about. You can see we have our East Campen existing dumpster location here. We're going to be moving the current location from West Campen a little bit further down towards Cypress for a couple reasons. That's to allow more parking more towards Main Street and also easier access for trash trucks to get to that larger location because it will be housing 3 dumpsters. And then the Women's Club lot down here will have a dumpster location here as well. We will be adding about 8 recycling cans to our existing trash locations downtown. So they'll be installed next to our existing trash cans. So it'll be clear regular trash and then recycle waste in that location. Again, this work is expected to be completed by the end of the fiscal year. Public Works will be doing the installation of the recycled trash cans, and they'll be working with a contractor to install those dumpster pads and enclosures so that they match the East Campen Row location. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board? I have a quick one. On the Women's Club lot, do you know where the dumpster is going to be on that lot exactly? Or is it too soon to know?
We have kind of explored several locations. We want to make sure that it's easily accessible, that it's not blocking anything, and that we're planning for the future.
And we're also thinking about what may be future uses discussed for that property. And, you know, for instance, Parks and Rec had mentioned at one point a splash pad potential for the field area. And so if that's there, you don't necessarily want a garbage receptacle in front of that with the keeping water clean. And then you don't want it right next. So we were looking at the back of the Women's Club house in between the gate openings for the field and the Women's Club, kind of mid-block on the back side of the lot, so it's not also the most visible thing when you're in the town square property. But every place was detrimental to something else other than that right
I just
now.
want to make sure everybody was thinking about that and cognizant of, I mean, there's a business in the Women's Club right now, you don't want it right at their front door and
Right.
things like that. I just wanted to know about that, 'cause I'm sure someone will ask. So, are there any questions from the board?
Got one, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
So when you said, after we get this in place, we'll start working with others to bring theirs up to, our new standard, do we know of ones already that we're gonna have to be addressing out of the gate?
Technically, dumpsters that are located on town property are out of compliance, and would need special permission from the town. We want to work with the businesses and make sure that they have opportunities to dispose of their trash. So we don't want to enforce any of our regulations until we've offered an alternative solution. So the primary focus is to get these other dumpster locations installed, and then be able to offer that as an alternative solution to the existing dumpsters that they're currently using.
Thank you.
And some of them may not even find they have a need for one anymore once we have ours, and,
Correct.
okay. There's no way to know that. Well, I'm very excited to see us getting started, and I like starting with the things we can do now. Y'all know I like everything yesterday, so.
We're excited
That's very
too.
exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 4C is the presentation of a resolution acknowledging a congratulations to Representative Darren Jackson on his appointment to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. We have two local folks that have had their roles changed lately, and they both have worked real hard for the citizens of Wendell. And so we thought it would be nice to recognize them. Certainly they're not here with us tonight, but to recognize them for their efforts, and to wish them the very best in their new roles. So the first one is the resolution of congratulation to Representative Darren Jackson on his appointment to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And it says that whereas on December 30th, 2020, Governor Roy Cooper announced that he has appointed North Carolina State Representative Darren Jackson to his seat on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, whereas Representative Jackson has served as a representative in the North Carolina General Assembly for 12 years and has spent his legal career serving the state of North Carolina with honor, whereas Representative Jackson has provided inspiring leadership, performance, and dedication to his community, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Wendell support and extend congratulations and appreciation to Representative Darren Jackson for his appointment to the North Carolina Court of Appeals. And it duly resolved today's date. And so we congratulate him, and we need a motion to adopt this resolution of congratulations.
So moved.
All right. We have a motion to adopt. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Madam Mayor, one quick comment.
Sure.
Just to echo the mayor's comments, Representative Jackson, before I knew that he was a representative, before I knew where much of anything in Wendell was, he was the closing attorney on our home, and that was his office at the time was in Zebulon. And even then was telling us about the places in Wendell we needed to go check out and the things we needed to go see. He went on to later host my wife's field trips for her third grade class from Knightdale to the General Assembly. I've certainly enjoyed working with him down there. He would be missed at the General Assembly, but certainly congratulate him on his new role as a Court of Appeals judge.
Do we have a motion to approve the adoption of the resolution?
I made that before I made the
Did you? Okay. All right, so we have, you did. So Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski,
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, thank y'all. And we will get this signed and send it to now Judge Jackson at his new location. All right, the next one, item 4D, is a presentation of a resolution acknowledging congratulations to Knightdale Mayor James Robertson and his appointment to the North Carolina General Assembly. So, whereas on January 11th, 2021, Governor Roy Cooper announced that he has appointed Knightdale Mayor James Robertson to his seat on the North Carolina General Assembly in House District 39 in Eastern Wake County. Whereas Mayor Robertson has served on the Knightdale Town Council since 2007 and is the Senior Dean of Instructional Support and Chief Campus Officer at Wake Technical Community College's Western Wake Campus. Whereas Mayor Robertson has served on numerous boards and committees connecting community members with many opportunities and has provided inspiring leadership, performance, and dedication to his community. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Wendell, support and extend congratulations and appreciation to Mayor James Robertson for his appointment to the North Carolina General Assembly. And it's duly resolved and signed on this date today. And we we'll get this signed and sent to him there as well. So do I have a motion to approve this resolution, adopt and approve this resolution?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion to adopt the resolution. Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And again, we certainly congratulate them both and look forward to working with them both. Well, working with Representative Robertson and watching Judge Jackson. All right, we're going to move into our public hearings now. Item 5A is a public hearing to rezone approximately 16.18 acres located at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road, PIN number 1784456183 and 1784542734, from rural agricultural to corridor mixed use. I'm going to hear from Assistant Planning Director Brian Coates. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This public hearing is to rezone approximately 16.18 acres located at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road from rural agricultural, RA, to corridor mixed use. The request for you today is to hold the public hearing. No decision can be made at this meeting. The decision will be considered at the Monday, February 8th meeting. The applicant is requesting to rezone one parcel and a portion of another located within the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction that are currently zoned residential agriculture. The applicant is requesting a rezoning that is not part of a conditional district. The intent of the rezoning is to develop multifamily housing. It's key to note that multifamily housing requires a special use permit and will require approval from the Board of Commissioners. The rezoning of CMX does allow a variety of commercial uses as well, either permitted or to come back to you as a special use permit. Some property information. It's for reference for those who may not know exactly where this is. It's kind of adjacent and behind Food Lion and behind the currently new under construction Hardee's. The applicant, Amos Green, is available to answer any questions, as well as John Oglesby, who is the engineer on the project. There's a map showing the two parcels for rezoning. Part of the main parcel was zoned CMX previously, well over a decade ago. The Food Lion Shopping Center is to the west, and to the east is Marshburn Road. The comprehensive plan does show this as an S4 controlled growth area as well as a neighborhood center. In those neighborhood center, it's a mixed use activity center serving surrounding neighborhoods with retail, civic uses as well as higher density housing. In this kind of neighborhood classification, should contain a mix of retail uses. A grocery anchored shopping center is typical for this type of classification. And there are some pads in the front next to Hardee's that could contain other uses as well. Also, Wendell Boulevard is part of the Gateway project for additional buffers and site standards. Framework plan shows that area. The circle is the neighborhood center classification. Planning Board at their December 21st meeting, the Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the requested zoning map amendment with a statement of plan consistency that this proposed zoning is consistent with the Wendell Comprehensive Plan and the S4 sector, as well as the neighborhood and the gateway zone as well. Staff recommends approval. As I said earlier, Amos Green and John Oglesby are available for any questions, so I can field them at this time as well.
Okay, let's open the public hearing, and are there any questions from the board? All right, does the applicant have any presentation they'd like to make? Or are they just here to answer?
Yes, ma'am. This is John O.
All right, that's great. Good evening.
Is there anything?
This is John Oglesby, applicant.
Yeah, is there any
Can you hear
additional?
me?
We can. Go ahead, you're on.
I would just like to say thank you for your time on this matter, commissioners and your honor. Would like to speak on behalf of my client. We really don't know what the development will be at this time, but it is proposed to grow as a neighborhood center. Whether it be residential, flex use, commercial uses. Amos does not plan on being a developer. However, we want to get this due diligence done, so this area will be ready to go. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions from the board?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
And John or Amos can speak to this, I spoke to Amos about it earlier. There was a question, the beauty now of everything being virtual is that everyone can listen to planning board meetings as well. It's something I've been taking advantage of, and there was concern about a path during the planning board meeting. John, I understand that you guys have addressed that, and y'all have a forthcoming solution on that. Certainly if Amos isn't the one that's ultimately gonna be developing it, that's of high importance in my mind, but just wanted to, I understand y'all have it addressed, just wanted to bring it up again.
Yes, sir. My client has taken a proactive approach to this. He has met with the adjacent property owner, and they have come up with a solution to the path issue.
Thank you, sir.
Was that the question about access to some farmland and barns in
Yes,
that
ma'am.
area, and that has been resolved? Okay.
Yeah, the current farm path meanders on both parcels back and forth along
Right.
the way, so
Mhm.
that was.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions from the board?
Commissioner Deloach, just to clarify, that was the road that, they were discussing, that was a historical significance. So there was some concern there, and
Yes, it's a farm path. We're not sure of its true historical significance. I think there has been questions about when the path was built, but it is a one-lane farm path.
And it provides access?
It
to
does
that-
provide
to me,
access
that's
to the
what's
property
key
owner to the
there as
north.
well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll close the public hearing, subject to the receipt of comment from citizens for 24 hours, and we'll take a vote at our next meeting.
Pardon me, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
We-
We had someone sign up for public comment.
All right. Public hearing is not closed. Yes. Ms. Benson, are you with us?
Hello.
Hello. You've got 5 minutes.
It won't take that long.
Okay. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Town Board Commissioners. Thank you for giving me this chance to voice my concerns. We do own the farm that joins this property on Wendell Boulevard, and one of our concerns is especially if it becomes multifamily, we worry about people walking over onto the farm, and that just becomes an instant farm liability. So I'm just asking that when this land is sold and the buffers are developed, whether they're berms or fences, that they're good enough to keep people from wandering over. We already have some trespassing over on the other side of the farm, as I mentioned in an earlier meeting. We also understand that the largest and the longest or the biggest buffers, I don't know the right word, should be for land between a CMX and an RA properties. So we're hoping that the setbacks will be enough and that the berms or the fences will be enough to contain that. And it's not that we're antisocial, we're not, but I'm sure all of you can understand the liability that immediately pops up if somebody wanders over onto the farm. we just want everyone to remember we have an ongoing working farm, and it's been that way over 100 years. So, you know, we just don't want people complaining about combines and tractors running. I mean, we've been there over 100 years, and we've always lived right where we are. I mean, within a couple of acres of where we are right now for over 100 years. And of course, the main concern that I have is what you have talked about is the farm path that is called Old Tarboro Road from way over 100 years ago. And it is part Ledford land, and it is part High Farm land, and then it's Ledford land again. And just so happens that Mr. Amos Green owns the High Farm part, which is called Parcel 2, or this Wendell Boulevard area. And if it were developed, it would, you know, become a berm or trees, or a path would be torn up, and it would block us from being able to get to our field on the other side. And this is the only path our family has ever had to the fields on the other side for over 100 years. Mr. Green did come out and talk to my brother and I on Saturday, and we had a very good talk. And at this point, if nothing happens, we're in the process of working out an agreement to buy the farm path that's on Mr. Green's land. So it is in the process of being worked out. That's right.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions from the board now, based on the citizen comment or comments from the board? All right, now I'm closing the public hearing. I apologize. I had her name right here in front of me, and I just overlooked it. Subject to receipt of comment for the next 24 hours, and we will vote at the next meeting. Item 5B is a public hearing for a contiguous annexation of two parcels totaling 28.28 acres, 23.9 acres for PIN number 1784456183, and 4.3 acres for PIN number 1784542734, located at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road. We're going to continue to hear from Assistant Planning Director Brian Coates.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. This request is to hold a public hearing for the requested annexation and consider adopting the attached ordinance. Again, no decision can be made at this meeting. The decision will be considered on Monday, February 8th. Item summary, John Oglesby, on behalf of G3 Properties LLC, has submitted annexation requests for the two parcels totaling roughly a little over 28 acres. It's the two parcels that were just before you for the rezoning. The two requested parcels are part of the G3 Properties LLC's Wendell Village that has been under development. The applicant, as you heard, just submitted a rezoning to change that to CMX. Parcels are located in the town of Wendell's ETJ. You can see there's existing sewer that runs through the road that has been recently constructed. The proposed annexation would require services from the town's police, public works, parks, and rec departments. If annexed and developed, secondary service impacts will be incurred by other town departments that support the operational departments. Properties already served by the local fire district. Water and sewer are readily available to the property and provided by the Wendell service area through City of Raleigh utilities. Specific impacts are dependent on the use, density, and design of that future development, which some of those uses would come back to you as a special use permit in the future. And I can answer any questions you have on the annexation.
Open the public hearing. Are there any questions from the board? Does the applicant wish to be heard again?
Where's that farm road located on that,
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
that they're talking about? Just for,
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
is it on the back corner there?
It's on this, like right along this back.
Okay.
You see where the cursor is, right along the property line. It meanders a little bit in here.
That's what I figured. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right. right, let's hear from the applicant if they wish. Do they have anything they'd like to add?
Amos or John, do you have any additional comments on the annexation?
Well, I'd just like to add and point out, sewer is on the property development lines up with our rezoning, petitions were submitted. I appreciate y'all putting this.
Right, we have one person signed up, Amy Painter Benson, for public comment. Ms. Benson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am. I just put down 5A and 5B because they were both about the same thing.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just say that I've watched the city limits of Wendell sign come further and further out as I grew up. I know it's just a part of progress.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have to say. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right, any additional questions from the board? All right, we'll close the public hearing, subject to the receipt of comment for the next 24 hours and vote at the next meeting. We're going to move now into our administrative items. Item 6A is a facade grant improvement grant update, downtown facade grant improvement update from Planning Director Nikki Jones. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. I will be brief tonight. We've heard about this quite a bit. So, at the November 23rd meeting, staff was asked to take a look at the downtown facade improvement grant with fresh eyes, and we did, and we came back December 14th to kind of update the board and see if our direction was correct. And what we heard from the board at that point in time was, yeah, you're going in the right direction with a couple of changes. And then we took those changes subsequently to the Appearance Commission in January because the mayor had asked for all this to be done in January, so we are here to complete that task. So the motion or the specific action requested today is that we ask you to approve the facade improvement grant with the updates. And quickly, I'll kind of go over what the current policy says and then what we're proposing.
Okay.
Currently, 3 years. If you're awarded a grant, you must wait to reapply. We are proposing 2. Currently, the policy says that you must complete the work within the fiscal year, and depending upon the time you are awarded the grant, that could be challenging. So we have changed it to complete the work within 1 year of award. Currently, the policy lacks clarity on whether or not signs are permitted, so we wanted to be clear, and we have excluded signs from being eligible for exterior improvements. Currently, the policy says $10,000 per facade. We've changed that to $5,000 per facade. And currently, the policy is silent on the geographic location, but historically, we've kind of recognized that this program is specifically for DMX, but we wanted to clarify that as well. And some of that additional guidance we got from the board in the December meeting was that the work should be completed within an appropriate amount of time. And I said, a year earlier, but we also wanted to add, or if a valid building permit is open. What does that mean? So if someone has pulled a building permit and they are working on the property and it has not been completed within a year, at that point in time, staff will kind of take a look at it to make sure that they are in fact moving in the right direction. If they're not, we'll take a different type of action. And then also, we heard that we need to market the program a little bit better and with various strategies. So what we've thought about is before each cycle, we're going to kind of go through a marketing strategy or program, if you will, social media kind of campaign, brochures, and maybe even reaching out to the Chamber of Commerce and asking them to help us out as well. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
One or two, Madam Mayor.
You go ahead.
Nagano, historically, our commitment to and ability to fund this has been largely based on our attention span and/or budget. I see the decrease from 10 to 5. I know that you explained that previously. Can you remind me the logic behind reducing the cap? I know in some of our more recent ones, we've expanded or we've waived that, and if that is still an option.
If the board wishes, we can certainly make that an option. One of the things that we heard was we wanted to make sure we were able to spread the wealth. But I certainly take your point, you can make a larger impact with $10,000 opposed to $5,000. And I just think that's
Yeah.
part of board direction.
I would certainly at least like to entertain the idea of being able to waive it up higher. I'll look at, and I'd even include, with staff's recommendation. So if you guys vet it and say, hey, this is a thing that we should look at more, I would certainly lean on you guys to make that recommendation. I'm not attempting to circumvent that cap, but there's certainly been opportunities that present themselves where we want to be as helpful as possible. My only other question was item 2, specify 2 but not limited to, so the repair or purchase of awnings. I know that there was a pretty explicit we will not pay for signs in here, and I appreciate that. I also don't want this removed. I think that we need to repair, and I can point to a couple awnings right now that we need to repair and replace. But I would just say for the record and I guess open for a conversation. There's also a lot of awnings that you put your name on the awning because you've covered up the face of your building. So I didn't want to let one thing that we're trying to exclude hinder us from replacing awnings. I certainly think that awnings can be touched up or painted over, or upholstered over in some way for the new business. But the awning seems to have that structural feel, and I would hate for someone to say, well, if I can't put my name on it, then I'm not interested in doing it, when I think there's probably workarounds there, but there's just wanted to get some clarity on that.
There may be a solution for how to manage that. I know we had one down there that had the name of a closed business on it for quite some time. It might still be there. I don't know. So I struggle with using taxpayer money to pay for a sign of a name of a business, which I want every business that ever comes to Wendell to be ultra successful. But the reality is they aren't always. Sometimes they choose to relocate. Maybe their family relocates for whatever reason. And I just don't want to have paid for an awning that's perfectly great and serviceable that has a name of something else on it. So if there's a way that we could say, we'll put the sign, we'll pay for the awning, you can have your signage put on it, but it has to be with a kind that can come off, that we know,
Okay.
that's fine. They can pay for their signage and put it on the awning, because I want people to be able to find the locations, but I don't want those letters to stay there once some places has left, and I especially am very cognizant of it being taxpayer money. So, is that possible, maybe?
I honestly don't know, but we can certainly research that.
I do know that in the past, and this is in my other life, when I've had to purchase something from one of my kids, years ago, we did a banner for something, and you could, when you had those made, you could have the letters, like dates changed, so it could be usable. So there may be something like that, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Um,
That would be my preference.
Point well taken on the awnings. I think it's part of the structure. I think everybody would
Yeah.
agree it's part of the structure. And upgrading an awning certainly can make all the difference in the world.
It can.
I don't know about the signage. I can certainly do some research and report back through the manager or something like that. But what I'm hearing is that we want awnings, and if we can have signage on an awning that's removable, and we would not pay for that, we would then pay for the awning.
Right.
Okay.
Can we have that in the form of a motion? Would that be good for you tonight, Commissioner Joyner? Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, and I believe you also wanted to include in your motion the ability to waive the upper amount?
Yes, yes,
You
Madam
want
Mayor.
to say the whole thing again?
Scroll back to the top. Madam Mayor, make a motion to approve the downtown facade grant improvements with the, included amendments of waiving, the upper limit of the facade grant at staff's recommendation, as well as allowing, awning signage when removable.
All right.
I just want to make one comment on that.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly in favor of the awnings. There's, you know, I know there's one that says Wendell Clarion on it downtown, which, you know, I don't know how long that's been out of business, and then the awning itself looks tattered, and I would love to see awnings replaced. I think that's a very visible part of a store that can be fixed very easily. They can make a nice improvement. I've struggled in the past with the facade grant. I think I've kind of been in favor of it at times and not at other times, just because I struggle with the taxpayers' use for public businesses. I do like the idea of improving the look of the town, but not for signage. In regards to the 10,000, if we offered the 10,000, I'm afraid I'm wondering how much of our requests are going to come in at that number. And I would just advise us as a board, or caution us as a board, that it needs to be a sizable change for a sizable amount. And I'm just going to pick a business, for example, and I'm not calling them out, but the distillery downtown, the facade of that looks fantastic. It's a very nice, clean, updated building. If he wanted to change his paint job and do everything else and all this stuff, I'd be fine helping him with that. But on the same point, I don't know if I'd want to give him $10,000 for an improvement on a building that already looks fantastic, excuse me. Versus another building that might look more aged in its appearance, and, you know, they're asking for an overhaul. I'd be more inclined to give that a $10,000. I'm fine that the board having control over that amount, and that's perfectly fine with me. I would just caution the board to make sure that if we are granting that much money towards somebody, that it is indeed, we're getting enough in our gift to get that in return. And that's all I'll say. And I'm fine to support the motion.
Is there a way to word it so that $5,000 still remains the upper amount, with the caveat that we can do more? So most people come in knowing the $5,000 is typically what we're gonna do. Does that make sense?
Madam Mayor, I attempted to use some fun words in my motion to say with staff's recommendation.
Yeah, you did, I know, I've been
So
talking.
my thought process was that staff would need to evaluate the project. Staff would need to say to us,
This
hey
is-
guys, I think you're gonna miss something if you don't remove the upper limit. We recommend you waive it, and just,
So you're saying keep the upper limit at 5?
I'm fine with doing that. I just want there to be
Okay.
a checkbox, and I want staff to know that if they recognize something,
Okay.
we wanna do that without having to go back and change an entire ordinance to do it.
Right.
So just accept as otherwise provided.
Okay, however
What we
we
pay him
make it
for.
legal, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna mention
That's usually our whole budget, right?
this being a policy, the board always has the authority to waive your policy. It's,
Right.
you're not having to change the text of code. So, if a project that had significant impact came into the town, that part of the board approval from the staff would be a request for you to wait, to set aside your $5,000 due to the extreme benefit to the overall downtown community because of this project, aiding this project at a higher amount.
So that covers Commissioner Joyner's desire and Commissioner Lute's desire that we make that the exception, not the rule. So I think we've got everybody. Does anybody else have any comments that they'd like to make?
Quick question, is
Yes.
that usually our budget was 10,000 a year? So if one person gets it, they get it all for that year?
That's correct.
Well,
Okay.
the 10,000 is just historically what the town has put in that budget line, but each successive budget, the board has the ability to add or subtract from that number. There's no magic thing to $10,000.
Okay.
If we had a large number of interested projects in downtown, and a board's policy was they wanted to really set downtown apart, then a board may direct the manager, hey, we'd like to see a little more funding in our facade grant program and other programs that improve downtown, and that manager would find funding in the budget to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so we still have a motion to, let's see.
Want me to do it again?
You want to redo it? Go ahead.
Mine's,
I've got
I can
something,
try.
now, and it's your motion, go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the downtown facade grant updates with the inclusion of staff's ability to recommend the waiving of the upper limit, as well as clarification that awnings with removable signage could also be eligible.
Okay. All right, is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, that passes. Item 6B is an agreement for professional services for stormwater utility Phase 1 with contracted town engineer Withers and Ravenel, and we're going to hear from town manager Mark Collins again.
Excellent. So the next two items tonight are, we've gone through the selection process for consultants and ready to get projects underway and moving. The first one is the stormwater utility study. Just as a reminder, as nice as it is to provide stormwater and make sure people's properties drain and the public streets drain properly, it is a federal regulatory requirement enforced by the EPA from the Federal Clean Water Act, the MPDES program. The federal requirements at the state level are monitored through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and they do annual compliance reportings and periodic program audits. Our audit is scheduled for 2022. You will recall the presentation last fall from Withers Ravenel for a stormwater program gap analysis, where they looked at our program where it currently is and where the state audit will likely find to determine that gap. So this is that next step of doing the study to develop the operational and capital project needs to fill that gap, as well as providing the funding options to implement the program. In doing that project, there are 6 tasks that I put in the report for your review. Just very quickly for the public's benefit. The first one is project managing, working with the staff that are dealing with that, both finance and public works, to prepare those findings. It really is a project that's kind of half finance and half public works. Developing a capital improvement plan with 10 stormwater projects over a 10-year, so it exceeds the life of our typical 5-year CIP. Developing a budget for both staff, operations, equipment, in dealing with emergency repairs, which is basically our program now is just emergency repair. Financial analysis model, that's just looking at what type of stormwater utility the town should develop. And then what's the fee modeling that would cover that? A lot of our comparative communities around us have stormwater fees to offset the ad valorem cost or property tax cost, and make it more of a property impact cost with the stormwater fee. And then finally, presentation of the deliverables. So bringing what they find in a useful time period for us to include in our formally in our budget work session in April. So they have a pretty fast turnaround on this product. The project cost is $21,000. There's currently a line item for stormwater consultant services. This will obviously take that line a little bit over the appropriated amount, and then we'll adjust the budget with the end-of-year budget amendment. This is a time-sensitive project that necessitates getting it done earlier. The project schedule provides, as I said, in April, so we can include a policy decision in FY22 budget. Idea being is that we need to get our program up and ready for regulatory compliance for the 2022 audit program. The federal regulatory part we have to do as a town. The real policy issue goes, how do you pay for it, right? That's really the policy issue. You can keep funding it out of general fund, or you can reduce the property tax bite with a fee. But that'll kind of be your decision at the end when you look at the program cost. And so tonight we're asking for the approval of the task service agreement and direct me to sign that with Weathers. Happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Are there any questions from the board for the manager? Okay. We have a motion.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign a service agreement between the town and Withers Drive now for stormwater utility study phase 1.
All right, we have a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the service agreement between the town and Withers and Ravenel for professional services for stormwater. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski?
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. We'll move to item 6C, is an agreement for professional services for Americans with Disabilities Act Assessment and Transition Plan with contracted town engineer Withers and Ravenel. And we're still with Town Manager Mark Collins.
Yeah, I'm ready for COVID to be over, because normally I can just sit over to the side as the manager and let staff do all the work, but with limiting the number of staff to bring into the meeting, I'm having to work a little harder, which is probably good for me. Sorry for y'all. The ADA is another check on the regulatory compliance list of a project that we need to get going. Probably around the time I arrived, the town had just received notice from Department of Transportation that between part-time and full-time, we had exceeded the 50 employee standard that requires the 3-year clock to start ticking for development of an ADA transition plan. An ADA transition plan is basically your plan to compliance for your facilities, existing infrastructure, programs, communications, creating an ADA grievance policy, as well as identifying your ADA coordinator and policy statement from the town. But there's a large component of assessing facilities and infrastructure that's more suited to engineers and architects that help you get there. The town obviously does not have that professional ability on staff, so we released a request for proposals for qualified firms. We received 6 qualified applicants. We shortlisted that down to 2. Withers Ravenel is the staff selection for the work based on the scope of services and follow-up interview. That makes the agreement a little simplified, as we already have a contract, and so it's a task service agreement to our existing contract for the services. This project is funded within our budget. The negotiated price is within 2,000 of that, so we're close to budget. That's still variable depending on how much facility analysis might be done, but it's anticipated to be just above budget. Budget was 32,000 and the negotiated project cost was 34. The project schedule provides for the completion of the assessment and development of the ADA transition plan by June 20th, 2021, which keeps us in compliance and moving forward. We have been reporting out to the state our efforts to get to this point through the hiring of an HR consultant who's our ADA coordinator, as well as going through this process. I provided in your report a list of the types of work, but for the public, there's public input into the plan. We definitely want to hear from the public, especially those that may have disabilities of some sort, about the adequacy of our plan when it's prepared. They provide consulting services for staff to help us through some things that we'll be doing in-house. There'll be a lot of the sidewalk, cross slopes, and there's also a teaching staff how to maintain in an ADA compliant manner. There's an assessment of our facilities and what needs to be done to those facilities to be compliant, as well as our programs and communication. If you can think of a visually impaired person going to our website, they need to know that the audio feature is in the same place on the website to be compliant, so they're able to hear what's on the page, and that our documents are laid out on a page in a manner that are readable. So there's a lot of little things that we don't think about that to help others feel included in our community. And happy to take any questions you may have, but staff is requesting the board to approve the task service agreement and direct the manager to move forward.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to authorize the town manager to sign a task service agreement between the town and Wendell now for professional services for the ADA assessment and transition plan.
Okay, we have a motion to accept and authorize the town manager to sign the task service agreement between the town and Withers and Ravenel for the ADA assessment and transition plan. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, Commissioner Joyner.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach.
Aye. You cut out on me, but aye.
Commissioner Lutz.
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski.
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. We're going to move into our other business now. The first is the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, CAMPO, that I attended CAMPO this past week virtually. It was a pretty long meeting since we did not meet, and we typically don't meet in December. It falls so close to the Christmas holiday, our typical meeting day. So we held a public hearing on the recommended list of lab projects that were submitted for public comment. Public comment has already started. It started January 6th and will continue through February 14th. So if anyone wants to, it's not too late to submit public comment on those. We also held a public hearing on a locally preferred alternative for a downtown Cary Transit Center, held elections for our chair and vice chair for 2021. They remained the same as the previous year. It's very typically what happens for a year or two. We received information on the draft 2050 scenario development This is part of the constant work that's done on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We received 2020 Wake Transit Annual Report. We received the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail Phase 2 Study Progress Update. We received a DOT update. We received LAP Project Restart Policy Update. We discussed Campo projects and funding updates, and both were approved. We received safety performance measures and safety targets for 2021. We received information about joint MPO transportation public principles and priorities, and there were also various staff reports. We got started at 4, and it was probably, might have even been almost 7 when we got done. The next one we're going to hear from is Mayor Pro Tem John Boyette for the Technical Review Committee.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Technical Review Committee has been very busy. We held multiple meetings, so many, in fact, that they spanned across 2 presidential administrations. The first meeting we held was in reference to our very own town hall. A quick overview was given. Between 15 and 16,000 square feet on a little over 6.5 acres. Items discussed were the fire access road design, materials, and whether or not it would have any edging. Also discussed stormwater, erosion, surveying issues, parking lot design. The police chief had some questions about landscaping and lighting as it pertains to sight triangles for traffic and lighting for nighttime safety. The next meeting we held was for a development called Peyton Place. There were some environmental stormwater that were brought up. There were some street design questions, also questions about sidewalks and where they led to and where they didn't lead to. And then there were also questions about how utilities were going to be extended to the property, and whether or not those were easements, or if they were going to be run within the roadway or not. Oh, I should point out this development is located on Old Tarboro. And if you're familiar with the area around Old Tarboro Road, it's a dirt road. It actually used to be the main road between Raleigh and, Tarboro. But now it is probably one of the roads in the town. But it'll back up to Anderson Farms. And so there were some questions there about how the utilities were going to get there. The third meeting that TRC held was about a development, and you have to excuse me, I didn't write down the name of this development, but it's going to be very near the intersection of Wendell Falls and Eagle Rock Road, sort of halfway between the stoplight and Central Baptist Church, on the north side of Wendell Falls Parkway. There were a lot of questions about the stormwater, the retaining pond design, especially as it pertained to the commercial section that was portioned off on the end. There was a commercial section there with no tenant or even any idea of what would go there. But there were some questions as to whether or not those stormwater concerns have been incorporated into the overall plan. There was also some questions about street width, parking, the length of street, the location of open space. Wendell Falls Parkway is a very busy road, and they had some open, active park play space that abutted Wendell Falls Parkway, and there were some questions as to whether or not it was best to put open space directly against a high-volume road like that. There was also some questions about amenities, and whether or not a multi-use path along Wendell Falls Parkway was going to be installed instead of a standard-sized sidewalk And so, like I said, a busy time for technical review committee, but worked through it and, a lot of questions answered. So, thank you, Mayor.
May I ask you a question about it real quick, Commissioner Boyette?
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
What
Yes.
were the thoughts by the TRC about the fire access road with regard to the town hall, the new town hall?
What about it? I'm sorry, what about it?
The surfacing, did that come up about the surface? I remember we discussed that at one of our meetings about.
It did, and the architect / engineer assured the town and the, fire chief that, that it would be engineered to withstand the all-weather weight of any fire apparatus that were to drive on it.
Okay.
There were some concerns about it being unpaved and just being gravel. The Public Works Director had some questions. That was where the questions about edging came up,
Yeah.
because as an unpaved gravel surface, there were some questions about whether or not it would wash away, and he expressed the desire for some sort of edging to keep the gravel on that surface. And the fire chief had some concerns about the weight of the fire trucks being able to get back there. But the architect or engineer, I can't remember which one it was, they assured us that they would find some engineering for that road, that it would be suitable for its intended purpose without needing to be paved with asphalt or concrete.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Now, the Eastern Wake Senior Center, Commissioner Joe DeLoach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This past Thursday, we actually met. We did that virtually, and they discussed a handful of topics. There was a presentation from Jenny Griggs, who is the program director for the center, and she was able to present some information in response to some surveys that were sent out to each of the senior center members. There are 407 members. They received 205 of those surveys back. They had some great feedback from the people that did respond. Obviously, about the programs given, transportation, facilities, et cetera. So she was able to present some of that to the group. The Voice is the new name for the weekly newsletter. Some of you may have seen that. Anyone can actually subscribe to the newsletter, not just senior center members. And the town also does a good job with helping to promote the newsletter through our social media. So they wanted to make sure that they passed along their appreciation for that. If you weren't aware, there is a daily Facebook Live from the senior center. It takes place at 3:30 each day. And on Mondays moving forward, they will have special guests that can provide relevant information to the seniors in our community. They're actually going to partner with local businesses, individuals that can also provide information and insight that is helpful to the seniors. So, if anyone's watching and they feel like they have something to offer to our senior population, whether that's exercise, nutrition, organizational skills, et cetera, feel free to reach out. You can certainly contact me, or you can contact the center directly, but I'm sure that they would love to have your help. It's not intended to be a business promotion or a sales pitch type of a thing, just helpful insight. Make sure you know that up front. It's all about doing good and helping others, so that's the main thing. I just want to thank my fellow Rotarian, Braxton Honeycutt. He's actually going to assist the senior center with that, so thank you to him. They did elect new officers for 2021. Some familiar faces in that group, but certainly they're all appreciated for their time, their willingness to serve. And I just want to say, from a personal standpoint, it is a delight to be a part of that group. They are extremely passionate. They support each other. They help each other. and they are truly a blessing to our community. So that's been fun to be a part of that. I will tell you that if you are 55 or older, you can join the senior center. This is by no means a 70-plus age category, retired folks kind of a deal. So 55 plus. I'm not pointing any fingers around, but you have opportunities. And one last thing, they were very appreciative of the town's assistance with some of the cleanup there at the center. They've had some power washing done, some new benches that are out, so they're thrilled with that. And then certainly one of the questions that we hear, and I'm sure you guys hear it as well, is when can we open the center? They're certainly eager, but they also understand precautions that are being taken. So, I guess my standard response is normally, hopefully sooner rather than later. But, it's kind of a guess at this point. So, but they were great, accommodating as always, and they're looking forward to great things this coming year. So, that is all, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. I agree. They're lovely folks out there. All right, commissioners' comments. We'll start tonight with Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am ridiculously tired of talking about this, and I know that you're ridiculously tired of hearing about this. Unfortunately, us being tired of it doesn't make it go away. The chief will update us tomorrow on COVID numbers in Wake County. What I can tell you is that regardless of those COVID numbers, there will be 970 vaccines sent out to the county next week, others sent out to healthcare systems. The vaccine backlog can find its reason for fault in lots of different places. That said, it's a process and we're working on getting it. I received a lot of phone calls about it. I'm going to continue to post information on it as I get it. Last week's numbers, or the numbers we reported out on the 19th, looked as if we were trending back down from our high of 153 new cases the week before. If the numbers from today are any indication, if we add much of anything tomorrow, we are going to be heading right back up the tree, and we're at 90 cases, and that's what I'll 2 or 3 old data. The chief will update us tomorrow. This is a mask. It's a very simple thing. You just wear it. I understand that it's aggravating. Man, it is aggravating. There's a really cool beard that no one has ever seen underneath this mask. It's hard to breathe. I can't wear my glasses because I get it. It's frustrating. The net effect is that earlier this week, WRAL reported that we're one of the highest communities in Wake County for catching COVID. To date, at least 17.5% of our entire population has been exposed to COVID and tested positive at some point. We can do this together. We're going to do this together. We've got awesome things that are going to happen in downtown, and I want them to happen in downtown. We've got awesome things happening at the park, and I want them to happen in the park. The quicker we get through this together and work together, the quicker we can get back to normal. Wash your hands, keep your distance, wear a mask. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Deloach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for that, Commissioner Joyner. I will say, continue to take precautions. Look, I had a last-minute curveball. I'm not there tonight. I'm very fortunate to have the ability to be here and still be with you guys. Mayor Pro Tem Boyette is a veteran at this, so he's helped step me through some of this tonight. We've had a handful of glitches, but I'm pleased to report that we've made it through. So continue to do what's necessary and needed and respectful to others, and again, we'll get through it. And like they say on the calls with the senior center folks, just keep doing all the things, and keep your head up, and we'll get through it. So if anybody needs anything, you know how to reach all of us. So if you want to talk about it, discuss it, address it, we're here.
Commissioner Lutz?
No comment tonight, Mayor.
Commissioner Tornaski,
No comment tonight, Mayor, thanks.
Commissioner Boyette,
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I also saw the numbers that came out, and thank you, Chief Carter, for those numbers as we get them. They are high, and getting higher, it seems. It's tough, but there's the end in sight. Vaccinations have started. Really hoping we're gonna start seeing a dent from that, in the coming month or so. I was also very happy to see, Wake County, is trying to prioritize some of the harder hit areas. We now have a permanent testing site in Zebulon, the Zebulon Park, it's my understanding. It's also my understanding that they're gonna try and do some permanent, vaccination sites, and also base those around the hard areas, with Eastern Wake County being continually the hardest hit in the county. I feel like we stand a really good chance of seeing something like that. And I know that there's been some staff discussion, with the county. I know the staff stays in constant contact with the county about these things. And it's really good to see how well, town staff and county staff and, Health and Human Services and the Health Department and all these different entities, work together, doing the best that we can with what we got. I was sad to see on the news that a lot of the vaccine doses that Wake County should have gotten went to other places, simply because they were doing, mega site vaccinations. I think it's good that we get as many people vaccinated as we can, but it certainly does put a dent, in the plans locally. So, just to reiterate what everyone else said, wear a mask, keep your distance, wash your hands, and just be mindful that, you're not just doing these things to keep yourself from getting sick. You're doing these things to keep others from getting sick, to keep your family members from getting sick, and to try to ease some of the load on the healthcare workers. And so we appreciate everything that everyone does. The few times when I do go out to buy groceries or see people out in the community, mask wearing is a lot more ubiquitous than it was even just a few months ago. And I think people, really are starting to take this seriously. But we got behind the 8 ball. And so, if we just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully we can get this behind us sooner rather than later. Thank you, Mayor.
First, I neglected to thank the planning department for their work on the facade grant and going ahead and taking care of that for me. I know that it's important to go ahead and take care of it now before we start receiving applications again and before we're getting ready to enter a very busy time of year with the budget and things like that, and sometimes other things can get pushed aside or we just don't have time for everything. So I thank you for going ahead and taking care of that. I want to congratulate the 52 seniors that graduated from East Wake High School last year. The mid-year graduation is always really very special. The students that graduate, excuse me, fall into 2 groups. There's a group of kids there who have excelled and are graduating early, and they've worked harder and they're graduating early, and the stars lined up and they worked really hard, and their parents are very proud of them for that. And it's incredible to me. I didn't graduate early. I don't know that many people that do, so I have tremendous admiration and respect for their work effort, for them doing that. The other group of kids are students who, due to some kind of adversity, didn't finish. But those kids still stayed in school and they showed up and they finished. And so they deserve our respect, and they certainly have mine, just as much as the group who finished early. If this is the first mid-year graduation I've missed, and the last spring was the first full school graduation I've missed, and both due to the pandemic, and I hated it. I hated missing both of them. I particularly enjoy that mid-year graduation because those groups of kids are very special to me. And I think that if you ever have a chance to hire any of them or work with them in any fashion, they bring something very special to anything that they do because of what they've demonstrated that they can do. And congratulations, I believe our manager has a child who graduated early. So congratulations to him. There are all those kids are there go really go far in life, and they're going to accomplish a lot, and I can't wait to see what it is. You can look at their parents' faces on that particular evening, the mid-year graduation, and you can just tell. You can tell that the smiles and the looks on their faces that they are parents of those very unique kids. So, I attended a virtual meeting with the Wake County Mayor's Association and the Wake County delegation to the North Carolina General Assembly this past week, or maybe it was the week before, and we discussed COVID relief to municipalities, COVID testing sites, and the need for sites in eastern Wake County, which has actually come about. I don't know that it was because of that pressure, but we certainly put a lot of pressure on them because it actually has happened, and there has been testing sites in Wendell as well as Zebulon. I want to thank Hepzibah Baptist Church because they've stepped up several times for us during the pandemic and assisted the towns. I know some of you, I know staff recalls the chicken sale, and they've done COVID testing more than once. So we really appreciate them. It's a good spot due to road access and room for cars to line up and stuff, but I do believe, and I've said this as well in this meeting, that I think we need testing which will evolve later into vaccine sites closer to town and closer to our downtown. We have a lot of folks here that don't have transportation, and though Hepzibah seems very close to us, it's not that close when you are struggling with transportation. And so I don't want to have that be a reason that folks are not able to be vaccinated if they choose. So we're working on that. Maybe the park would be my first choice probably. We also discussed DOT funding. You know, I feel like Wendell, we're always a day late and a dollar short. We're finally catching up with some of the other municipalities in Wake County, and the DOT is struggling with funding issues. So they're probably going to need DOT some support from the General Assembly possibly. We'll see, and I certainly was in front of the line for Wendell for that. And we also encourage them to work with the League of Municipalities on common advocacy goals submitted by towns, because those are a reflection of what all towns need, and to not overlook those things. I've also had a lunch and learn with the Chamber of Commerce with Katie Coble of East Wake High School. She's the career development coordinator and the internship coordinator, and she wears several other hats there. A lot of folks at our schools wear lots of hats. But at East Wake High School, students are able to choose a career pathway, a focused study, and she is seeking community support to host interns. The students come ready and eager. They've met grade requirements. They've been vetted a certain amount, and they sign up for this. This isn't a requirement, so they're very motivated to participate, and she needs some of the folks in Wendell to help her with that. When she read through the list of people who participated in the past, I was really pleased to see some Wendell names on there. I hope that those folks will continue to do that, but we need more, because there are more and more kids all the time who are eager to participate in that. It's not a babysitting or hand-holding situation. These kids come ready. You don't have to go get them. You don't have to do anything like that. But I hope that if you're interested, and I hope you'll consider it, and that it really could be any kind of job, any kind of, there's just a wide variety of ways that you can help the kids, and a wide variety of things that they're studying that would fall underneath this. If you're interested, you can contact Ms. Coble. Her email address is kcoble, C-O-B-L-E, at wcpss.net. That's Wake County Public School System. And if you forget that, you can email me or call me or however, and I will get that to you, because it's very important. We've had interns here at the town. We had an intern that worked our IT for a little while that helped us with our meetings, and she was outstanding. So I urge you to do that. The last thing, I want to remind you that the farmers market is now accepting applications for vendors. The farmers market's going to be located the same place that it was last year. It's going to be spread out and wonderful. I hope that you will all participate. It's going to take place on Saturdays from 8 to 12, starting May 1st and run through October 2nd. And there's no fee. You can attend as many markets as you'd like. So if you'll please go to townofwendell.com and fill out an application and join the fun. It'll be a good opportunity to get outside. All right, that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned.